Okay, the first question. When was your first child born? Like what year? And how old were you?
Excuse me. Now, what year was a child born? What do you mean by that?
What year was your first child? So Uncle Mark, like what year was he born?
Oh, what year was the first child born?
Yes.
Oh, the first child was born in October 1957.
Okay. And how old were you?
Well, I was about 28.
Okay. Next question. I already know this stuff, but I have to ask you for the interview anyway. So how many kids did you end up having?
We had 3 children.
Okay, and what were their names?
The name was Mark William, Carol Ann, and Jane Marie.
Okay. What rules did you have for your kids growing up?
What rule did we have?
Yeah, like, did you have rules about like?
Oh yeah, we had
yeah.
rules that get up in the morning and to the extent that you could, make your bed and have breakfast and go to school with your hair combed, your teeth brushed, and all sort of polished up.
Did you have them like make their beds and everything?
Yeah,
Okay.
They were supposed to make their beds. Sometimes they got fooling around and it was too late and they weren't able to do it. But yes, basically they were supposed to make their beds.
Okay.
Had other rules about school and about homework and when to get to bed and
what were their bedtimes?
Mark was the oldest, and as the kids grew up a little bit and got further along in elementary school and high school, he could stay up a little longer than everybody else because he was older and bigger, you know.
Yep.
All right.
Did your family move at all? Where and why?
Well, yes, I was with the telephone company, and I had to move, and we moved from Maine to Danvers, Massachusetts. We moved from Danvers, Massachusetts to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. We moved from Pittsfield, Massachusetts to Springfield, Massachusetts.
And when you were in Springfield, that's when my mom was born, right?
That is right. That's when Jane was born.
Oh, so Aunt Jane was born in Springfield.
Aunt Jane was born in Springfield, Mass.
Okay, where my mom was born in Danvers?
Your mom was born in Danvers at the Hunt Memorial Hospital.
Okay.
In Danvers, Mass.
And where was Uncle Mark born?
Uncle Mark was born in Augusta, Maine.
Okay. Let's see. How did you punish your children?
Well, we punished them by taking away privileges. We never spanked anybody or hit anybody or anything like that. We took away privileges or you couldn't watch TV or certain shows or something like that if they did something bad. But they didn't do many things bad, and we didn't have to punish people too much.
Okay. Did other family members live close to you?
No, they did not.
Okay. What values did you bring your kids up with?
What value?
What values? Like, did you have any, like, morals that you, like, tried to, like, raise them with?
To be honest and dependable and tell the truth and to be polite and courteous.
Okay.
That was always a big thing. Like when you came into somebody's house or something, if you had a hat on, to take off your hat.
Okay.
And say please and thank you. And if somebody introduced you to someone, when you took your leave, to say I'm very glad to have met you.
Okay.
And so forth and so on. Just basic courtesies which few people have now. You know.
Yep. Did your family go to church, and if so, what kind of church?
Went to church every Sunday at the Catholic Church.
Okay. Did your kids like going to church?
Did the kids go?
Did the kids like going?
Oh, yes. They went to church, yes.
Did they like it?
Not too well.
Okay. Did your kids attend public school, and what was the school's name?
Now, did I what?
Did your kids attend public school?
I don't understand that.
I mean, did your kids go to like the public school, like the town
yes,
school?
yes.
Okay.
They all went to public school. We didn't have any private schools.
And what was the school's name that they went to?
Oh, Lord, it was Hollowell Elementary School, and it was a Halldale High School
Okay.
they went to, and when we were in Springfield, they went to nursery school at Mittneg, Mittneauge, Mittneg
Mhm.
Congregational Church, pre-kindergarten school.
Okay. So when did
They also went to college at the University of Maine.
Okay, so but when did you leave Springfield and go back to Maine?
In 1968.
I see. Okay. And you moved from there to Hollowell?
We moved from there. We moved from Springfield to Bangor, Maine.
Okay, and then you moved from there to Hollowell?
We moved from there ultimately to Hollowell when I got transferred with the telephone company.
Do you remember what year that was?
Yes. Well, let me see. That was I believe it was in 1969.
Okay. So in my last interview, after you said you graduated from the University of Maine, I think you told me that you and Grammy moved to Grammy's parents' home? Is that?
When I graduated?
Yeah.
Well, when I graduated from the University of Maine, we moved back down to Gardner, Maine, where Grammy's parents lived.
Did you move, like, into their house or just the same town?
Yeah, we put what we had in storage, furniture, and we kind of lived with them because it was on a basis of I was going to get assigned somewhere in New England to work for the telephone company, but for the summer, for about 4 or 5 months, I was just training in this place and that place in Portland and Bangor, and trips to Boston and trips to New York and stuff like that. So we really didn't have a home, and we couldn't have a home, you know.
Yeah, so once you left Gardner, where did you go?
Well, after we left Gardner, I was assigned to the Northeast Division in Massachusetts, which included Boston and Salem and Danvers and that whole area, and we then moved to Danvers.
Okay. Let me see. What's my next question? Did you and Grammy both work while raising your kids?
Well, no, Grammy didn't work while raising the kids. Grammy went back to teaching school after the kids got big enough and got into high school.
Okay.
And Grammy went back to school as a substitute teacher for a year or two, and working 2 or 3 days a week as she was needed, and then ultimately gravitated to a full-time teaching job for several years after that.
Okay. Do you have like any like really funny memories you can think of while the kids were really young? Like, are there any that really stick out to you?
Well, yeah, when they were doing good in sports and stuff. Your mom played field hockey very well. She was an excellent field hockey player. And I went to some games where she was playing field hockey. Uncle Mark was a dandy little basketball player and a pretty good athlete. And he loved to run. And to this day, he loves to run marathons.
Mm.
He runs half marathons and full marathons even now. But he was a very good athlete. Aunt Jane never was too much of an athlete. But I remember some of the athletic things that the kids did and so forth. And when they excelled at their lessons and school, it was very gratifying to Grammy and I.
Did you take any memorable trips when the kids were young?
Well, we took some memorable trips. We took a trip once to West Point and upstate New York, to West Point for a weekend, and so so forth, and we made numerous trips when we had time off from West Springfield, for example, back to Maine for vacations and long weekends and stuff like that. And but we didn't take many weekend trips, and we didn't go camping and stuff like that like people do today, you know, with a camper and a trailer and all that.
When did you buy the house in, the camp?
When did I buy the house?
The camp in Forest City.
Well, we didn't buy the camp. We leased the land, and we leased the land from the paper company because we couldn't buy the land. They wouldn't sell us the land, but they'd lease it to us.
Oh.
We paid a handsome sum each year to the paper company to lease the land, or in other words, use the land.
Do you remember how much that was?
Oh, that was started off about $300 a year per lot, something like that.
Okay. So when did you actually build the camp, though?
We built the camp starting in August of 1968.
Okay. And did you build it yourself, or did you hire people to do it?
No, we hired people to do it, and my father was living here in Forest City for 6 months during the summertime, and he sort of supervised it. He and three other men actually built the camp based on Grammy and my specifications.
Okay. So that was all of the family questions for that section.
All right.
So now we move on to community/economic.
Moving on now to economics.
And community kind of questions too.
And community questions.
Okay, so the first question is, were you pretty financially stable while raising your children?
Yes, we were.
Okay.
I had a very good job with the telephone company. I was very well paid for what I did, and we had no financial problems at all.
Okay. What type of community did you live in as adults?
Well, we lived in a very viable community with all the amenities that you would want: libraries and schools and hospitals and police and fire and ambulance services. And we lived on a nice street. We had nice neighbors, nice people. Very nice communities we lived in.
How did you decide what town you wanted to live in?
Well, when the children got in school, we were very cognizant of what kind of schools they had in certain communities and what kind of teachers they had, what the reputation was. We asked a lot of questions, and it wasn't always how close the school was to where we wanted to live, but where we could get the best education for the kids. And Grammy was a school teacher. She was very cognizant of schools and what teachers did or didn't do, and so that was always a consideration that we had where we moved. That was very important to us, and then the church was very important to Grammy and everything, and what kind of church they had, and the Catholic Church and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things went into where we would live.
Okay.
And also where we could afford to live.
Yeah.
Some really high-priced, very elite places where people that was above our strata in life lived that we couldn't afford, you know.
What year did you buy your first house?
Well, we bought our first house in West Springfield in 1962.
So, did you go from West Springfield to Danvers?
What's that?
So was it West Springfield before Danvers?
Yeah, it was West Springfield after Danvers.
Oh, so
we moved from Danvers to Pittsfield, and from Pittsfield to, well, I call it Springfield, but we lived in West Springfield.
Okay, so...
Which was a very nice area outside of the big city of Springfield.
So where did you live when you were in Danvers, then?
We lived on Park Street in Danvers.
Did you buy, an actual house, or did you rent something, or
No, we rented a half a house.
Okay. Do you remember how much you rented it for?
Oh, gee, I don't. But
okay,
maybe,
that's fine.
Maybe maybe, I don't know, maybe $300 a month or something like that.
Okay. Now, you didn't have any student loans to pay off because you were on the GI Bill, right?
That's correct.
Okay. How much was your first car as a married couple?
Well, I think, my first car probably was $3,000.
Okay. Was it a brand new car or was it a used car?
We had the car. The car was a new car.
Okay. Do you remember what it looked like? Like what company was it?
Well, it was, of course, I came back from the military in 1952, Caroline, and I bought a brand new car, which was a 1952 Chevrolet.
Okay.
And I went up to the University of Maine in 1953, that car, and then Grammy and I were married in 1954, and in 1954, we then bought a brand new car, which is a 1956 Chevrolet Bel Air, and it was a beautiful car. Two-tone, it was green on the bottom and white on the top. It was a beautiful car, four-door, and that was the first car that we bought. It was a brand new car that we bought after we were married. Excuse me, wait a minute. Excuse me, go ahead.
That's fine. Let's see. When did you get a second car?
When did I get a second car?
Yeah.
Oh, probably in 1970.
Okay. Do you remember what kind of car that was?
That was a 1970 Chevrolet Nova convertible.
Wow, convertible.
That was an awesome little car. It had a red interior, red leather interior. It was white. It was a nice little car.
How often were you home? Like, what hours did you work, like, in the morning to night? Like, what were your hours?
Well, my business hours at my office was, like 8 or 8:30 till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but I didn't punch any clocks or anything, and sometimes I went in to work very early. Sometimes I worked very late. Sometimes when I was on the road visiting the areas that I supervised, I would leave early and go home. And, for example, when I was in Maine, and I had the Maine area, and I came from Portland up to Bangor, and I would have lunch in Bangor, and I would come on up to camp in Forest City on Friday afternoon, and for the weekend, so I didn't have any set hours as a manager. I just, but the hours were supposed to be, like 8:30 to 5.
Okay, let's see. Did you have any neighborhood parties or parades or anything?
Did I what?
Did your neighborhood have any parties or parades?
Well, we used to have a lot of, not a lot, but several parades when we lived in West Springfield, and we always had a 4th of July parade, and some streets were roped off in our area, and all the kids got their bicycles all gaily decorated with red, white, and blue, and flags, and the parents made some nice headdresses for the kids with red, white, and blue bunting on it, and there was some fireworks and watermelons and food, and some streets were roped off, and on several occasions, the parents all chipped in and rented some ponies.
That's cool.
That were brought in. They were all saddled up, and they had handlers, and the kids would ride the ponies. You'd take your turn riding the pony up and down the street, and the next first kid would take their turn riding the pony, and until, let's say, from 12 o'clock until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the handlers would load the ponies onto their trucks and trailers and cart them off back to their stables, but that was always fun.
That's cool. Was religion a big part of the community that you lived in? Like, did a lot of people go to church?
Yes, a lot of people went to church. Many more people went to church in those days than they do now.